Welcome to our continuing series, Fine Poetry, Poems that Touch Deeper Chords. Today, Peter Yates. And this is from A.B. Purani's book, Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, An Approach and a Study. Purani writes, Peter Yates, in his Invocation and Word of Death, gives us the two most characteristic poems embodying the inmost tendency of the New Age, in which we find the spirit and the form indivisible. This spontaneous movement of making inner and spiritual elements concrete is successfully illustrated here. See how he invokes, quote, the star of eternal possibles and joy, end quote. Purani, for nothing is impossible to the divine eternal. So he prays, quote, vibrate the marble with your kiss. Artists minute of the hues of littleness, they set the mosaic of life's comedy, or plan the trivial tragedy of our days, arrange the deed, combine the circumstance. And Purani continues, probably he invokes the divine delight to come down and descend with its love into the most material level, the marble, and make it vibrate to its love. He asks the star of eternal possibles to, quote, aim for the fringe, the thinnest curve, where strength of possible despairs, the missing but imagined arc, for which the circle aches, the vistas waiting to be seen. In a situation where, quote, the possible, end quote, gives way, and the curve becomes thin and weak, he invokes the star to supply, quote, the missing arc, end quote, the crying need of the circle in the form of some bright vision of the future. The last stanza embodies the most subjective turn and happily makes the inner experience potently objective. Quote, O star of mind's dark inwardness, prolong the struggle with your force. By your not being, dare to be, more than the eye can see, a silence audible with growth. Purani, the last line in which silence becomes audible with growth, is a rare triumph of poetic expression. In his other poem, The Word of Death, he finds, quote, the pure mobility of endless concentration without name, end quote, which is stronger than the mobility of thought or of the sex impulse. This nameless concentration, the author says, quote, let it descend, rest in all thought, here once again, offer oneness like a bribe, and haunt the windows of the world with living's prisoner imagined free. In the last stanza, the oneness offered by death seems to attract living human beings who are really prisoners of life, but imagine themselves free. It is not death, but the oneness of consciousness or soul that is offered by death, which acts as an attraction. A new way altogether of seeing the phenomenon of people hastening to war and to death. The next poem. Why should you, artist, why should you not dare? Why should you, artist, why should you not dare the final agony? You are not wanted. Bear it in the elevation of the mind, and, if you cannot, with the spirit, rig a technique, rig out a new technique. For reason is dead. The intuitive daylight dims in the carved halls. Rig a spirit for a reason, like a scaffolding or a fresh light. Will. Why, aren't you paid for it? What golden guild, artist, pays you for a living? Rig a new technique, the invincible will, decorator, out of old furnishings, set us up a discreet order, and the living will remain with Blake, Bach, Angelo, Beethoven, saints and prophets who dared that men should live. For Charles Ives, if there is left men's God in the world, one single man to speak of you and befriend, too many words cannot hide you for that man. He will be like a history when it is lived, not yet made faith, and in him, you in him. The green of leaves, the blue of seas will be no more tangible, no more real. He will come up like a spring. In winter, men will live in memory of him, and death shall be forgetting, even as one man has forgotten spring. The God who inhabits words and works in men, and who is real in the person, real and final as the speech of one who, feigning, cannot feign to feign. This real, enduring, stout truth's counterchange. Death does not affirm and cannot fail him in whom living is a part in being. And the last poem. Be near me now, the hour's change grows strange. Be near me now, the hour's change grows strange. Each evening prefaces a haunted morning. Each moment history ends. Thus history ends. And yesterday is piled against the sun. Even today's darkness is begun. Tomorrow yields no plan. Tomorrow is. Against this certain, all false premises are true, and worth's a pocketful of pennies. Be near. The days, the nights act will not change. Love, having been, will win. You and I know it. We have planted a good seed. This soil will grow it. Sweet and ripe will be the fruit, and frustrated is the weed. In our hope, love nourishes life that will endure love's need.